Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Denice Show. It's good to be with you today, and we have a special guest, a woman who's from the Middle East, who lived for years and years as a Christian in a Muslim-dominant country, and the persecution against Christians and other non-Muslims is, of course, can be really horrific in countries in which Christians and other non-Muslims are a minority. And before we begin talking to her, I wanted to share something with you that came to my attention before going on air today. This was an article that's put out by Stephen Emerson's investigative project. And maybe a lot of you check out his website. Again, the name of his site is Investigative Project. And Stephen Emerson has followed Islamic terrorism in the United States. And on his website, he has articles from various Middle East specialists. And I thought it was interesting that based on the information from the global, it's called the Global Terrorism Database, there's always an increase historically of terrorism, of jihadist attacks every year during Ramadan. And so I asked Sophia to come on the broadcast today and talk to us about Ramadan. Why, for example, is Ramadan special to Muslims? Why do they celebrate it? And because, again, in light of the fact that terrorism is increased during this time, I thought it would be interesting to get Sophia's perspective. Also, I wanted to bring to your attention that in addition to this, intelligence sources indicate that the terrorists, jihadists, Muslim Brotherhood, various ISIS, Al-Qaeda, various groups, Hamas, Palestinian groups, Hezbollah, are watching how the United States handles this pandemic with COVID-19. And they have been studying the United States government's response, as well as that of other Western countries, in terms of being able to protect the American people. And this is also deeply concerning because presidents prior to President Trump have not properly provided safeguards and really built up the kind of protective infrastructure that we need to protect us from an attack, a biochemical attack or a biological attack, a weapons of mass destruction attack, using pandemics or, of course, bioterrorism. So I think it's important to hear what Sophia has to say today. So let's bring her on the program. Sophia, welcome to the Denice Show.
Thank you, Denice, and happy to be with you.
Thank you so much. Sophia, tell us about Ramadan. What is Ramadan about? Why do Muslims celebrate it?
Yeah, in the Quran there is a verse, chapter 2 and verse 183. It says, the meaning of the verse, O Muslims, you are commanded to fast as the people before you did. Ramadan is the name of a month which the moon god worshippers used to fast sunrise to sunset, 29 to 30 days based on the shape of the moon. And Muslim took over these rituals and
yes, because this was
Ramadan. Yes.
Forgive me for interrupting, but just to clarify for the audience, so prior to Islam's establishment in the deserts of Arabia back in the 7th century, the Bedouins, the nomads, the tribal people worshipped the moon god. And so Ramadan that represents the 9th month in the lunar calendar that's followed by Muslims, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and if you remember, we mentioned that Muhammad really didn't come with something new. His goals was to attack people and take their women and their possessions or properties. So he just took everything from Saudi Arabia, the culture of Saudi Arabia, as we said, not to offend any of his followers, so they can fight for him.
Okay. And why do Muslims celebrate? I mean, this I understand they have to fast from, I believe it's from dawn until sunset. So throughout the day, they're fasting. I believe they can, it's my understanding based on all the Muslims I've known over my lifetime, they can eat as soon as the sun sets. Is that correct? Sunrise to sunset? Yes.
Supposedly they fast because they are afraid of each other, so they act as if they are fasting. But in reality, the vast, from what I've seen,
from your experience, from what you've seen, okay.
Yeah, they act as if they are fasting. And good to mention that the moon god is mentioned by the same name was used for him in the Quran. Is referred to as Sin, or they call him Yasin or Osin, and also is referred to by a black stone which is at the Islamic pilgrimage site called the Kaaba, or the Islamic cube.
Kaaba, right, and that's in Saudi Arabia, and right, and it's getting back to why Muslims celebrate it. So again, I'm not clear. Why do Muslims celebrate this month, this 9th month, Ramadan? Is it because of the Quran? Is it because this is? It was my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It was my understanding that the reason why they celebrated is because this was when the Quran was given to the Prophet Muhammad. So it's a celebration of the fact that this, these words that now make up the Quran were given to Prophet Muhammad. Is that your understanding?
That's also what they say. Like we said before, the Quran was put together by a confused mind. So there's nothing in a smooth sequence about the Quran. One time it says it came during 23 years, which is the last 20 years of Muhammad's life. And then another spot in the Quran also, it mentioned that it came all together in 1 month. But yes, it also mentioned that it came together in 1 month, which is the Ramadan month.
I understand what you're. Yes, I understand. I have read that there are various historical accounts by Arab authors with regards to it. What I find incredible is that it seems as though the Quran has taken verses from what we call the Torah, or the Jewish Bible, the Torah, which Christians call the Old Testament, and the New Testament, the Bible, and it's as though they rewrote parts of the Jewish or Torah or Old Testament and New Testament, and sort of and gave it a new twist, which, of course, according to Christians and Jews, is blasphemy. Are you familiar with that? Have you? It sounds like you've read the Quran. Are you familiar with those passages that I find deeply disturbing? That seem
very familiar. Like we said, Muhammad was very busy man, attacking other people and taking their possessions and their ladies as sexual slaves. So he didn't have time, and he didn't have the mind to put a good book. So he took, Islam is literally a mixture of all the religions and the neighboring religions. All the religions, including some of the very little about Christianity and about Judaism, and some of them some stories mentions, and it does not make a complete sense because it's partial stories. One of them is, just for the sake of example, Joseph, the story we know about Joseph, that the Pharaoh's wife lusted after him.
Yes.
In the Quran, he lusted also after her, and all the ladies who were sitting next to her, they lusted also after him, and they were holding knives, and they started to slice the wrist from, that's how bad they lusted sexually after Joseph, because he was very beautiful, handsome man. That's one example.
So that's something that's stated in the Quran, which is in direct contradiction to the Bible. Yes, right. And there are numerous. When I read through the Quran, Sophia, I was shocked by the number of what I would call Old Testament or Torah passages that, as you pointed out just then in the story about Joseph, and thank you for that example.
And some verses are identical, word for word, from the Bible into the Quran, word for word.
Do you know of an example? I don't recall ever seeing anything that was word for word. Can you give us an example of that? Can you recall anything? If not, that's okay. I'm thinking.
My mind is hazy now. It's like I remember it and I don't remember it in the meantime.
That's
but
all right.
I will definitely bring good examples next time for that.
No problem. So I wanted to ask you, could you give us some example or a specific example? You know, as a Christian, we know that Christians face tremendous persecution and hardship during Ramadan. That's well documented. And again, as I mentioned, it's on the Global Terrorism Database. You know, as a Christian that lived in a Muslim-dominant country, can you give us an example of how Ramadan negatively affected you? Or if it didn't negatively impact you, maybe how it negatively impacted your family or your friends or people at the church you attended. Can you help us understand why there would be an increase in persecution against Christians, and give us a story?
Sure. And I want to say to your audience that it's very important for you to understand that everything they believe, and I know a lot of people in this planet believe a lot of things that sound silly, but everything Muslims believe in will affect you negatively, devastatingly negatively.
Give us an example. You need to give us an example of that. During Ramadan.
A good example, let's say the Muslims supposedly, like we said, they fast from sunrise to
sunset. Mm-hmm.
Okay, as a Christian or as a non-Muslim who is living in a dominantly Muslim country, you cannot eat publicly. You will be it will result in public flogging, harsh public flogging.
Well, I remember ISIS actually crucified a boy. I think he looked to be about 12. And I remember when ISIS was in control of large parts of Syria and Iraq that they crucified even children for breaking the fast on Ramadan. But anyway, go ahead. So you're about to explain a Christian story.
Yeah, you are not supposed to be caught eating publicly, not to offend Muslims. Of course, to comply with their beliefs. That's no.
Christians have to comply with that, right, in public,
but
right.
Not to offend them, because a Muslim is more sensitive, and during that month he's not eating, and you cannot eat and entice him. They see that as if you're enticing them.
Right.
Cafes and restaurants, if you own cafes and restaurants, it must remain shut. If you own a liquor store and you happen to leave it open, which is the chances you cannot have the liquor business open, Muslim will get in and destroy it for you, and no consequences upon them.
Okay.
So as a Christian, you have to be cautious not to offend them by all means possible. Don't say anything offensive. Don't eat.
Or drink. As I understand, you cannot drink even a glass of water.
Of course. Or smoke a cigarette. Mm-hmm. Or even taking a medicine, you have to like cover yourself while you're doing that.
To
Or
take
hide.
medicine. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
or hide.
yes. Okay. That's this confirms other stories that I've heard from other Christians and non-Muslims in the region, and I appreciate you confirming it, because it's just one more person telling me things that I have heard in the past. I wanted to ask you to explain to the audience what does Ramadan mean to you living here in this country? In this country, we're not likely to see, and unless there is a jihadist attack that we're not informed of, that the police don't share with the news media. But it's not likely for a Muslim that sees us out eating and drinking during Ramadan, which, ladies and gentlemen, begins tomorrow. It's a month long. They're not going to attack us. They're not going to beat us up. They're not going to start stoning our car. They're not going to flog us. Why is this Ramadan, why is it important, or why should it be important to Americans?
Because they're not going to do all of the above right now, because they are not the majority yet. But once they control the government, which they will if we don't do anything about it, and it's the same thing whether a good Muslim gets in the government or a bad Muslim by the Western standards, they will put this in place. They will start to punish us if they control the government,
right.
And when they are majority in the population.
Very good.
Until then, we're not going to see much. We're going to see the sweet side of Ramadan, which is the fasting, the celebrations, the sweets, and
yes.
And the candies.
That's right.
All that we get. The harsh phase is for a different phase.
Right. I want to go. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. One thing that disturbs me is the last Friday of Ramadan. It's a month-long holiday, and they have what is called Quds Day. Quds refers to Jerusalem. It's the Arabic term for Jerusalem, Quds Day or Jerusalem Day. And there's a lot of racism and discrimination shown against Jewish people, particularly in Israel. There's as I said, demonstrations and violence on this quote-unquote Jerusalem Day. And I find this remarkable, Sophia, because Jerusalem is never mentioned in the Quran. Having read the Quran, I never see that term Jerusalem or Al-Quds Day mentioned, spoken of in the Quran or related to Ramadan. But yet that last Friday, they take an opportunity to wreak mayhem and violence, particularly against the Jewish people. Have you witnessed that in Egypt? It's my understanding that the entire Jewish population has, for the most part, left Egypt, fled from places like Egypt. They had to leave Saudi Arabia. They had to get out of Iraq. They had to get out of Syria. They had to get out of Lebanon. In most every Muslim dominant country I'm familiar with, the Jews have had to just pack up and leave, and if they couldn't pack up, they just left with the clothes on their back. Have you evidenced this in any of those Muslim dominant countries?
Oh yeah, that's in the 60, around the 60, and that needs another episode by itself.
Okay.
But if you remember, we said that Islam is a war ideology first and foremost, and it developed over time. It's not perfected by Muhammad, but Muhammad started that ideology, and they kept adding to it and develop it. So maybe Jerusalem, you're right, Jerusalem wasn't there by the time of Muhammad, but now it is. And war, or what we call it here, jihad, is a lucrative business to Muslim top dogs or the Muslim countries, which they have to in a way keep Israel alive and well, and in the meantime fuel the hatred of the Muslims toward the Jewish people. And how is that going to benefit them? I mentioned earlier also that you can sum up Islam into three things: sex, money, blood. And now I want to talk to you about the money trail. How is this hatred benefits
Yeah,
Muslim
how is it
countries?
lucrative? Yeah, I wanted you to explain that. How is it lucrative?
Especially Saudi Arabia, which come in the top of the list. It has to be an enemy.
There has to be an enemy.
They have to fight. Yeah, there is an enemy, which is now it's Israel, and there is a cause, a secret cause, which is taking over a holy city, supposedly belong to Islam, and through that they can gather millions of dollars. When one time in the mid-90s, they were able to gather more than $600 million because of the Palestinian, what they call it, the Palestinian
resistance or terrorism. How did the Saudi Arabian government get that kind of money? Is it donated?
Donated by the Muslims who care for this Palestinian issue. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And in the same year they raised $600 million. They were able also to raise $100 million from the Serbian war. If you remember, in the mid-90s, the Muslims were fighting the Christians in Serbia. The Muslim immigrants who immigrated to the Serbians country, they were able. There was a war, and Saudi Arabia raised $100 for that cause, and they raised $600 million for the Palestinian concern or issue.
Okay, very good, interesting. Sophia, thank you so much for sharing today. Is there? I want to give you an opportunity to give the last word. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Yes, I want to tell your audience that, like we said, everything is directed toward the non-Muslims. All the worships, all the form of worships, it will end up directing at you, which means that everything they do in this life, they have to include you. What I mean by that is, during Ramadan, they kill more than they have a lot of attacks, and that's because in their belief they believe that they get 10 times the reward that they get in a regular day or a regular month.
Right, during Ramadan there's
during
special
Ramadan.
right.
If they rape somebody, if they rape somebody during
Ramadan,
a normal non-Ramadan day, they get the reward for it, but as if they converted somebody to a Muslim. If they rape somebody, this is their belief. They converted this person automatically to Islam.
Okay. So there's greater rewards for jihad. There's greater rewards for rape. There's greater rewards for persecution.
Greater reward for killing animals. During Ramadan, greater reward, 10 times the reward, sexual reward in the Islamic paradise when they kill, rape, take your money by force, all the violence they direct toward you.
Okay. All right. My goodness. Thank you so much for bringing your perspective and experience to the audience today. We appreciate it so much, Sophia, and we hope that you have a blessed evening, and thank you again for coming on the broadcast today.
So much for having me. Appreciate it, the opportunity.
You're so welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to bring to your attention Carson Blacklock, a man of integrity that works as a real estate agent for Miramar International. I hope that you will give him a call, 661 area code 203-3544. Again, 661-203-3544. Carson Blacklock. Let him handle all your real estate needs. I also want to remind all of you of a great place to go for dinner tonight where you can just call them up and they'll literally, as soon as you arrive, bring your food out. Call ahead, though, and order what you want at 661-836-2000. 661-836-2000. 661-836-2000. Call Frugati's Restaurant. It continues to be voted as the #1 restaurant for your Italian food desire. And again, they have an extensive menu, fabulous food. And as I like to mention, for those of you that are vegans, they have 100% vegan or gluten-free dishes. So give Frugati's Restaurant a call, 661-836-2000. Also, I want to bring to your attention Anatase Products, that wonderful forward-leaning manufacturer of all your hardware needs. If for those of you that are working for major defense companies or aerospace companies, let Anatase Products handle all of your hardware manufacturing and distribution needs. They also have an important materials testing laboratory that can handle all of your specifications. Scott Baker is the owner and president. He's a former Marine Corps officer. Give Scott a call at 661-822-6873. 661-822-6873 for all your hardware manufacturing needs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Denice Gary Show. We appreciate you, and we hope that you have a good, safe, and blessed evening. Thank you. This is Denice, signing off.